So I will tell you, I knew I always wanted to be a writer. I was editor of my paper in high school and college. Certainly not a have to, but I always wanted to be a writer. And I actually majored in college in political science because my goal was to go and be a war reporter. My plan was to go be a stringer for the AP and live in Afghanistan. And that really was my plan when I was in college. And hence I did not major in journalism. But again, I did journalism. My goal was always to amass clips and be able to show a potential employer. Obviously, I wasn't thinking clients at the time, but an employer that I could write. So that was always my goal. And when I graduated from college and I was planning to go off to the EP to another world, I decided, maybe this really isn't for me. Maybe I don't want to be in Afghanistan. What will I eat and who will be my friends? And maybe one day I want to have a family. And it wasn't all going to work out. And so I stayed home and I got a job working at a publishing house that had 150 trade magazines. If you guys know anything about trade magazine, wow. Every different trade has a magazine or 2 or 3 or 5 or 6. Let's just say, I don't know, commercial real estate has their litany of 5 or 10 magazines. And the magazine actually that I worked for, the 2 magazines that hired me, one was for architects and one was for engineers. I started out really writing about the construction industry. And none of us were old contractors. None of us were architects. None of us were engineers. We were all writers who learned the industry. And this is back early 2000s. So I graduated from college in 2000. And my first job out of college, like I said, was at Trade Publishing House. And I learned the industry. I didn't know anything about architecture and engineering. I learned it. And we used to hire some freelancers for extra additional work that we didn't have time to do in-house as editors. And I would edit their stuff. I would lay it out on the page and we would send it to the printer. And I worked with freelancers for a while. And after I had 1 or 2 kids, I said to myself, why am I not staying home and doing this myself? Again, this was early 2000s, 2004. I went off on my own and I knew nobody who was a freelance writer, except for these people who we had hired at the magazines. And I knew nobody who was working for themselves. And I would tell people and say, oh, what do you do? And I would say I'm a technical writer. This was, again, before the word content marketing was popular. This was back when if any of you have ever read Ann Handley's Everybody Writes, this was when the beginning of her career, also same time, early 2000s. And just, it wasn't known. This kind of job wasn't known at all. Freelancers certainly wasn't known. Like I said, I didn't know anybody that did this. And I just bit the bullet and jumped off a ledge and went off on my own. And I left the magazine actually with 1 client. That was my requirement. I couldn't leave with no clients and just be out there on my own trying to figure it out. But I left with 1 client and the person who hired me was a head of an engineering firm here in downtown Chicago. And he happens to be on our board of engineers, right, for the engineering magazine. And he said, sure, you can come and ghostwrite some of our stuff. And I was like, okay, great. In the beginning, I was doing the same thing that I was pretty much on the other end of where I had just been as an editor. So I was writing stuff and submitting it to the magazines that I had just worked for and our competitors as well. And it slowly grew. My business was all word of mouth. And again, I was home with my little kids. I had that luxury of being able to grow my business slowly. I know that's not something that everybody has an opportunity to do. So I did that for a bunch of years and it was all word of mouth. My business was all word of mouth. It was some people I knew who were in healthcare, someone else who again, it was still that construction world. So I had a contracting client, I had building systems manufacturers who made everything from windows to ceilings, lights, etc. And I literally would just take whatever came my way. And about, 7 or 8 years ago, I had a healthcare client who left healthcare and she moved into commercial insurance and she brought me with her as a writer. And I didn't know anything about insurance. I knew I had insurance. I knew that when I'm sick, I go to the doctor and I give them my insurance card. And that is not at all what I write about today. I write about commercial insurance, which is insurance that businesses need. I actually do write about sometimes about employee benefits and other things like that. But most of what I write about is commercial insurance. Every business needs insurance, right? Their directors and officers need insurance for decisions that they make on behalf of the company. They need property insurance, which is a basic insurance that everybody can understand, right? You have a building and it needs to be insured if someone slips, trips, or falls. General liability, write about cyber insurance, lots of different kinds of insurance. And anyway, this friend of mine who was in healthcare and she was the CMO of a healthcare company, and she brought me over to commercial insurance and I started writing for them. And I really came to love risk and insurance. And I'll tell you why. I'm a certified risk and insurance nerd now after all these years. But I will tell you, it's really because it reminds me of of that desire to be that wartime reporter. Whatever is happening in insurance and risk, is really what's happening in the world. When the George Floyd riots were going on downtown in Chicago, like a year and a half ago, I was writing about property claims that retailers were making on their facility because they had been, broken into and everything had been taken from them. And when the pandemic first started, I was writing about furlough and employee benefits and what that meant for companies. Whatever is happening to businesses, that's what's happening in the world of risk and insurance. It's really just a mirror of it. And I love risk and insurance because, like I said, it reminds me of being that reporter. Whatever's happening is really what I'm writing about. And I even had something a couple of weeks ago when OSHA came out with that EHS mandate that all the companies that were 100 plus had to require their employees to be vaccinated. I'm sure everybody remembers that was made a bunch of headlines. And I had a risk client who called me and said, okay, we need to quickly get on this because all of our blue collar workforce of all of our clients are going to have to be quickly getting up to speed on this. And it was fun for me. I felt like a reporter again. I got to quickly write an article that was based on a news element that had just broken and to be able to talk about what that meant for my client. And all my it was funny anecdotally, but my client that day was like, wow, how did you do that so fast? This was great. Like you got all the information, whatever. And I was like, oh my gosh, you brought me back to 20 years ago. And I really enjoyed it. Anyway, it's not always breaking news, almost never is actually, but it's a lot of analysis on how the news has actually affected businesses. And that's really what I write about all the time. I do have some insurance companies. Actually, don't have any insurance companies, I should say that. I have a number of brokers, a number of insurance brokers who are clients of mine. And some of them do have wholesale units, so they're actually selling to the public, but that's not typical. And I'm certainly not writing about it that much, but I'm writing a lot about risk also. Even with insurance companies, they're writing about what are businesses' risks. And that's something I really enjoy because it gives me the opportunity to feel like I'm helping people all the time. Yes, it's big business that we're helping, but what's big business made of? People. And people need to reduce their risk. And you don't want everything from, like I was saying, slips, trips, and falls on an office floor to have a client whose clients are all oil and gas companies, renewable companies, telecom companies. And what's the goal there is to keep all of their workers. So I'm writing constantly about risk management for businesses and obviously insurance and how coverage plays a role, but it's not as much product marketing as it is offering their clients information on how to help their teams. So it's a lot of risk management, a ton of it. And I love that. I have a real passion for reducing business risks. I've come to really love that. But anyway, I know that there were a number of questions and I'm going to try to go through some of them. Sarah, did you have any questions before I get through?
We can just tackle them naturally as we go. Because one of the first things that came to mind, you mentioned it's not much product marketing. Mm-hmm. It seems like insurance risk and compliance are established business things that, if you open a retail location, you need insurance for it. So what role does the writing play in the business that it's in demand? Like, why do they need writers still, even if it's a traditional industry?
Oh, okay. That's a great question. I'll say twofold. Number one, a lot of the things that I write about, again, are like risk management best practices. So yes, you need insurance, but what makes you want to go with one company versus another? Usually the answer to that is what kind of like free information one of the companies is providing, right? If you're an insurance broker, an insurance brokerage house, and you're out there constantly talking straight to your potential clients about how to manage their risk and how to become a better risk in front of the insurance companies. Again, not as much about what the actual product is, because you all need that same product, right? Everybody needs property insurance for their physical structure. Everybody needs executive liability in case their C-suite gets sued. But if you can provide real information that can help them reduce their risk ahead of getting insurance, so then they're going to be more interested in coming to work with you as a broker. And then secondly, I'm trying to remember now can you remind me your question again? I don't remember exactly what I was saying.
Why they still need current writers when it's a traditional, really well-established.
Okay, thank you so much for me. The second thing I was going to say is that each company, and just this is the same across any industry, but certainly it is for insurance, each company has their own kind of niche themselves. And here we're talking about niche writing, but each insurance company will have their own niche. So I have one client that just does cybersecurity. That's it. And they pair it with risk management. If you are coming to get a policy from them, they're going to actually be out there scouting out the web, and they're going to let you know when you have a known vulnerability. There's somebody out there, there's a perpetrator out there, a bad actor who is looking for businesses like this, and they're going to come into your network, and they're going to breach your network, and we're going to help you, and we're going to help you do X, Y, and Z, create more of an armor around all of your network. Every business has their own niche, and that's what they want to get across. They want to get across why you should come to get insurance from them because they can help you with X, Y, and Z. And you see each insurance company, not every insurance company has exactly the same coverages. They focus in different areas and they want their quote unquote competitive advantage to be out in the world and to be talking about what they know well and how they can help their customers specifically. So I actually work for a number of competitors in the same space, a number of commercial brokers that are competitors with each other. And I find that even when I write on the same topic, it's never exactly the same blog. Now, obviously, I bring my own experience to the table, 8 years of writing in this genre, but even more, they each have such unique things to say, and their clients are unique, and they target specific industries for clients and specific markets, so that even when I'm writing about the same topic, let's say supply chain is such a big topic right now. Everyone's talking about it in America. And it's something that we're talking about in insurance also, because it certainly affects many of the companies. One of the types of insurance that my clients all write is auto, trucking. They write trucking insurance. That's what's happening in truckers is supply chain, right? That's like one of their biggest issues. So I'm writing about supply chain all the time for different types of companies, and no two blogs are alike because they're all unique based on the competitive advantage of each of my clients.
Yeah, and I guess I'm struck by it almost. I know this isn't true, but it feels like you need an MBA to get in and really understand
right. No.
corporate insurance.
Right.
So what was that process of learning about it? Like, how did you know it was exciting for you?
Okay, two things. Number one, I would just say for all of the aspiring writers out there, I'm sure this sounds super boring, but again, like I said, I happen to love it because I love reducing risk, and I just love those ideas of really helping people. Much of what I write about is just information that can help businesses. But even more, let's just take it from like this whole idea of, wait a minute, I don't know anything about this niche, and like, how could I ever get into it? It's just experience, right? It's just learning. And many of you guys have said that, Liz and Pamela also. So much of it is just getting experience and working for people and showing them that you have clips, that you can do this, that you can be a writer. And I have writers that work for me now. I have a number of writers that work for me. And I'll tell you, I'm never really thinking I'm going to get someone who has that risk and insurance experience. But what I'm really looking for is someone who has a lot of writing experience, who has done this a bunch of times. And if I just throw them another topic, they'll be able to navigate through that with my help. But the goal is that they're a good writer, and that even more that they have these two things. Number one, that they're a decent writer and they've worked on that craft much over time and they have experience with it. But number two, that they have this curiosity and desire to learn. And I know Liz said something about that also. And it's really true, right? If you want to hear, I'm in the niche of risk and insurance, and I don't know everything. I'm not an insurance professional. I'm not a risk professional. I'm just a writer who's been around these topics a ton, but I have the curiosity that it takes to be able to take a deep dive on something and to be able to ask what's the next question that needs to be asked in an interview, or take the time to do the research to find the right statistic that I need to go with a blog, or just to take the time I'll be on a call with someone and they'll throw out an acronym and I'm like, oh my gosh, what does that mean? So I'm quickly Googling, what does this and this mean? And I'm like, okay, I got it. I can piece together what that means based on the knowledge I have. Or I have to tell you this, and I do this all the time to people, I ask stupid questions. I'll say things like in an interview, okay, this might sound like a really stupid question, but I really want to know what you have to say about it. And it's true because almost 99% of my work is ghostwriting. I'm ghosting for the person that I'm interviewing. And I want to hear what they have to say in their words, because those are the words that I want to be able to use in the blog for them. I always say, okay, I know this sounds like a stupid question, but, and I used to say that even more than I do now, but I'm not afraid to say that. And I think that's an important piece of every interview, as well as just being able to say what you don't know. And if you're a good writer, you're going to be able to take that information and go.
No, having someone tell you in their own words, like that's the secret hack to all interviews is getting it in their words and then just using that basically transcript into the final piece and editing it. I wonder, what are some of the titles of the people that you tend to work with? That person you're ghostwriting for, is that an executive at the insurance company?
So it depends. I have executives that I do thought leadership for specifically, like you were talking about before, I think with Liz, that I just write in their own words, and it's really high level executive leadership. And then I also have just SMEs or subject matter experts that are at every one of my clients, and I'm ghosting for them in those articles as well. But the person who will hire me is obviously not the subject matter expert, and it's not the executive. It's the marketing manager, the content manager, the CMO in a smaller company, the VP of marketing. It usually tends to be in a big company. It'll be more of like a less prestigious title, if you will, something like content manager. And in a smaller company, it might be a bigger title, like a CEO might reach out to me, or a president, or a CMO of a smaller company. So it just depends. I have both. I have some of the biggest commercial insurers in the world are clients of mine. And then I have some startups who are SaaS insurance providers. It's really such a range. And I find that everyone needs like something similar, but how we get there might be different. So I have some clients who are small companies, and I'm doing everything for them in terms of content. I'm helping them create the content calendar. I'm helping them execute it. I'm helping them in working with their team members to like, again, pull ideas out of them to put on the content calendar. And then I have like huge commercial insurers who they're running everything, and I'm just meeting with their executives and executing blogs.
Yeah. And it strikes me that maybe more than others, insurance risk and compliance is one of the industries where they're, hey, we need content too. Someone come help. Because writers assume it's too technical. They need too much experience. Oh, I couldn't possibly help with that, when they really need people to explain what they're doing in those terms.
100%. I'll tell you, I've been in 2 niches now. I told you guys about the construction that I worked for years, and I still have some of those clients just because I've been with them for 17 years and I can't really get rid of them. I love them. I've come of age with them. I still have some of those. I even have a magazine that I write for in the architecture world with my own name on it. But being in and out of 2 different niches and having no knowledge of either one before I started, it just takes time and experience and just learning on the job and being willing to make mistakes. And I will say also, and this is something Liz mentioned for a minute, but I really do want to highlight it, is having a mentor. It's important to have a mentor. I'll tell you, when I first went off on my own, straight from the magazine into my own company, I called up those freelance writers, one in particular who we had hired at the magazine a bunch. And I just said to her, I'll pay you anything. Can I just ask you questions? I'll send you gift cards. Like, I needed everything from pricing help to how to deal with clients that were difficult. I needed any kind, plus the specific niche, right? Like how to maybe get more clients in that industry, everything. It really needed help with everything. And she was the nicest friend of mine. Now she's a friend of mine after all these years, but she said, sure. And I would just pick her brain like once a month. We'd have a half-hour call, or whenever I needed to, I'd send her an email, and I'd always send her a gift card or something a couple times a year just to say thank you. And I'll tell you, I do that for many people now. And not that I want my inbox to be flooded, but I'm happy to do it for any of you who are listening. I just think having a mentor. And you do not have to send me anything, no money, no gift card. I just love helping people. And even if you don't want to do risk and insurance, if you want to do another niche, I'm happy to help you with that, because again, I've been in 2 niches, and I think that I don't think that I did anything different the second time around than I did the first time. I think learning an industry is just learning an industry, no matter what it is. And I think gaining experience in writing is just gaining experience in writing. And I know we've talked a lot about on this call, a lot about pricing. And I just want to throw out, definitely to be able to write in a niche. I'm certainly commanding a lot more money now than I did 17 years ago when I opened my business. But again, even then I had a niche. And I would say I've slowly raised my rates over time. I would definitely suggest creating a price that's like commensurate with your, number one, either experience in an industry if you want a niche, and or just your experience. If you have a bunch of years of writing under your belt and you can show clips, that's more important than anything. That's more important than saying I have this proficiency in a niche, which is really not common, right? We're all here and it looks like this is common, but it's really not. And I would just say that slowly over time, you build up and you have more experience and more experience. And if you have no experience, let's say you're listening to this and you're just an aspiring writer, find someone that like me who has done it. And again, it doesn't have to be a niche, but someone who is a writer, ask them questions, latch onto them. You never know. In today's world, there's so much need for writers. Every business, every industry, every market needs writers. And you never know. There's maybe a job or a project that someone can offload on you, even if you're new, and they can take you under their wings and they can, show you the ropes of how to do it. Or, and I know Sarah mentioned this before as well, volunteer for somebody that I would not do this for anybody and to do it for free, right? Just because you need experience. Like, when did I do that for free? In college. I had a number of internships in the summers during school. I was editor of my college newspaper. Those were not paid. It's a similar idea. You need to get like internship experience that you can have those clips and be able to show them. At my first job out of college at this trade magazine company that had 150 trade magazines, I literally bought my clippings from high school and from college and from the newspapers that I had worked at over the summers. And again, no one paid me a dime for any of those. Okay. but I can't say like I was working for a big business for free. I would never do that. Don't take it the wrong way. Maybe you have a family member or a family member's friend or someone, another business owner that you know, and you can say to them, hey, I see that you're not on LinkedIn or you're not on Facebook, and those could be great opportunities for you. Can I help you with that? Is that something you'd pay me a little bit to do? Or I can help you write something once a month for your target market. And that's a side gig. And that's how you build up your experience. And that's really the most important thing. It's not that journalism degree. It's not that writing degree. It's not that English degree. It's the ability to show somebody what you've already done that they need your help with. And that's just having clips.
Yeah. And just to affirm that, even if you make a mistake with pricing, starting now is better than waiting. So it's better to start writing for someone as soon as possible, even if you make every error in the book, because that
100%.
writing
And
experience.
we've all made them. We have all made errors. Don't think that anyone, and we're still making errors, guys. Don't think that none of us are perfect. Yes, we have a niche, and yes, we've grown in this. And I've been doing this for 20 years. I cannot believe that. But I will say everything has built upon the next thing. And I mentor students at my alma mater all the time. And again, that's in political science, right? Because that was my major. But I will tell you, I tell them the exact same thing that I tell the high school students. I teach in high school also, writing workshop. It's my fun, like volunteer gig once or twice a week. And I love it. But I say the same thing to everybody. I did not, even though I wanted to be a writer forever, right? I started this by telling you guys I wanted to be a writer in high school and elementary school. And I did all these things to be able to get here. The job I do today did not exist 20, 30, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, almost. It did exist 5 years ago I was doing it, but it did not exist. And the business that I have today, no businesses like that existed 20 years ago when I graduated from college. So my entire career has been doing like the next right thing that made sense based on where I was at the time. There's no secret sauce. There's no magic candy land going to the next thing, picking the right card. It just doesn't work like that. You just have to gain experience and make the next best decision that's in front of you.
And Nadia shares that this is encouraging. She worked for 10 years as a commercial underwriter and in training and development of products and offers and rates, but was worried she's been out of it for too long to consider or explore the niche.
No, I don't think so at all. Absolutely not. Reach out to your old employer, call their marketing team, see any of your other contacts in the industry. If you're on LinkedIn, back in LinkedIn, see who you're connected to. Try to get in touch with those marketing teams. Everybody needs content right now. And I'll tell you something else, Nadia. It's not about what the rates were at the time and now you don't know what the rate is now. I'm never writing about numbers like that. You know why? Because they're outdated the minute you publish them. We're just writing about concepts. And those concepts, which I'm sure you do if you worked even more than a year at all in this industry, you'll be able to pick up and write about anything that's happening right now. It's just having that like background knowledge of what this industry is about, and knowing some of the terms and stuff like that. And again, things change so quickly in all these industries. Risk and insurance and compliance is certainly one of those industries that things are changing constantly. So I'm learning on the job too. Even though I have all this experience and I've been doing this for so long and I have some of these huge name clients in the industry, I'm every time I get on a call, I'm learning something new. You can do it. You really can do it. And I'm happy. Now you can reach out to me, go onto my website. There's a button to do an inquiry call with me. Obviously, it's not inquiry. We can go through the questions or whatever and get on my calendar. I'm happy to answer any questions or help anybody. But everybody go out there, get as much experience as you can. Find a mentor. Mentorship, like I said, it's critical to so many things besides just pricing and industry knowledge, but just in general, the thing. And now I have a business coach now also who I pay, right? So my mentorship isn't free anymore. It's not those Amazon gift cards that I was sending, but I pay somebody to help me. But and again, your mentor will change also. That's another thing I tell the students that I mentor. Your mentor will be somebody in the beginning of your career that will be totally different 10 years later. You're going to have to like up your mentor to somebody who's just ahead of you. But my mentor now, my business coach now, is someone who had a PR firm for many years. And she recently sold after literally owning it for 15, 20 years. And she's still working in the business, but now working for another umbrella company. And I don't know that that's my goal, but in general, she has ideas for my business and for what I do that are things that I would never even come up with myself just because she's been there. So again, find someone that's just ahead of you in any industry, any niche, but certainly in writing, and be able to ask them questions and get experience and stay curious. Those are my best pieces of advice for any niche in any industry.
And Nadia, I might add, it's not that you can niche horizontally, look for other insurance companies like that, vertically, excuse me, but you can also niche horizontally and look for any technology you used on that job. They might have a whole product or a whole landing page or a whole content theme just for people who use that product from your industry. And you could be a great resource for them to have insights into what it's like to work in that space and what those people need. It's like your experience has just a lot of different branches that you can use to pull yourself up and start charging.
Yeah, awesome. One more thing I just want to say, I think I have 1 minute or two, but both to Nadia and anybody else who's looking, but really once you get some experience, and we talked about different things about paying, but once you have some experience writing, before you leave that job, ask that person to give you a recommendation. So whether that is on LinkedIn, that it's there on LinkedIn, and then you can take that. That's a public thing. I take those and I put them on my own website. Whether you have your own website or not, it doesn't matter. But the fact that you'll have some recommendations. And then number two, the other thing, and this sounds like a big ask, but it's really not. And people are happy to do it if they were happy with you. Ask them if they know anybody else who's looking for help with content. It sounds funny. You feel like, oh my gosh, I'm asking, but I will tell you, the recommendation, the word of mouth recommendation from somebody else who's, whether that's in their industry or a buddy of theirs who's in a different industry, who might know somebody who's looking for content help, it's invaluable. And I will tell you, my business grew just originally 17 years ago, was all word of mouth. It was engineers who would leave the firm that they were in and they would take me with them to the next firm that they went to. And now I see it's the same thing, even in risk and insurance. I had a client last year who they had a whole sweeping change in their marketing department. Their entire marketing department got wiped out. I was no longer working for them anymore. And literally last week, I got a call from another company, also in that industry, but okay, work with other people in the industry. It wasn't a weird call that I, got a cold call with Blue. And that guy said to me, oh, gave me your name. Who was it? It was a guy who was an SME, someone who I had interviewed at that company almost a year ago, who now left and went to this other company and said, oh, no, I used to work with Mindi. She's really great. And boom, that wasn't somebody that I even asked for a recommendation. And he brought me with him to a company a full year later. And now this is going to be another client of mine. You never know. Ask for recommendations, ask for ideas if they know anybody else who needs content. And one thing leads to another.
I love it. Wow. Thank you so much, Mindi. And like you said, we'll share the link in the follow-up email with the replays to your website. So it's easy to bombard you. Should be less than 100 people.
Okay, yeah, no pressure. Oh my goodness.
But thank you much. I think we've really demystified this niche as something that anybody can jump in. And if you get that excitement, maybe excitement is extreme, but if it feeds your curiosity, if it makes you want to keep reading, this could be something that you learn about and dig into.
As a side note, if you enjoyed our conversation today, I want to encourage you to check out the B2B Writing Career Kickstarter. This is the all-in-one class that introduces you to B2B, helps you figure out your niche, and then a couple times a year, we actually get together and write your first clips together. If you'd like more information about that, just click the link in the course below or head to b2bwritinginstitute.com. Thanks for joining.